Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here today and for your empathy and awareness in doing so. I would especially like to thank Sissi Kammerlander for the invitation and opportunity to come here and speak to you all. It is a great honor for me to be here, and words cannot express how much it means to me to be able to do so. I have chosen to conduct my speech today in English as an expression of solidarity with the children in German foster homes who are not allowed to speak to their families in their native tongue. Above all, I want the world to know about the violation of children's rights, human rights, and disabled rights in Germany and in Europe, and how the illegal and morally shameful actions taken by supposedly protective authorities are destroying the lives of children and families. I am a crisis intervention consultant of the Bavarian Red Cross. I have worked 27 years voluntarily for the Red Cross, 20 years on the ambulance cars, and 7 years in a crisis intervention team to care for the traumatized relatives and witnesses of victims of sudden death by accident, murder, suicide, infant deaths, and school shootings in Bavaria. And I have become a whistleblower in a care home for the elderly of the Arbeiterwohlfahrt in Marktschwaben in the year 2010. In 2012, after having appealed to the Jugendamt Erding for help in a desperate situation, my grandson was abducted by the Jugendamt, aided by the family judge in the small Bavarian town of Erding. Thereafter, an administrative officer offered me a new place to live in psychiatric care. After the illegal abduction of my grandchild, I have been diagnosed a borderline syndrome with depression and a bipolar personality disorder by the German administrative officer who is working for the court in Erding. This professional diagnosis was given after the abduction of my 5-year-old grandson, Maximilian, and after the flat in which I lived with Maximilian, whose mother was in hospital at the time, had been flooded. Up to the year 2012, I did not know that administrative officers, members of the Jugendamt or family judges, without any kind of medical education, are permitted to give diagnosis on people's health. Clearly, I now know that this ill-judged method of assessment is an accepted practice. Being classified as a borderliner, I prefer to cross the border, together with my younger daughter and her 2 children, to protect them from the Jugendamt, whose members were chasing them. Now we are living in exile in Malta. We haven't seen Maximilian for more than 3 years, and I have only met my eldest daughter here in Vienna after 2 years. First time. As you can no doubt imagine, these events, which I have briefly detailed, have ripped our family apart and have caused us immense pain and heartache. This case, however, is scratching the surface of an endemic situation of barbaric practice which has cast and continues to cast a vile shadow over countless similar cases and similarly destroyed families. Be braced that the following will not be an easy ride. In honest fact, when recounting even the barest details of this situation to my friends and acquaintances, I have found that the general reaction is that of shock, disbelief, and horror. All I ask you, that you consider these facts and evidence with the same empathy, awareness, and judgment that brought you here in the first place. All the persons I have asked for help were trying to make me believe that we are an isolated case. But in Malta, I met some more isolated cases. Amongst them is Sabrina, a young mother who had also escaped to Malta with 2 of her children. She had managed to save 2 of her 3 children up to the dreadful day when she was arrested, due to an unfortunate coincidence, and her children were placed under a care order in Malta. The Jugendamt Schweinfurt sent 2 social workers to assist their Maltese colleagues. The Germans pretended to take the children to the beach, but instead took them to the airport and back to Germany. This could only have happened since the German social workers had issued children's passports before they set off to Malta. Sorry. Up to now, Sabrina has still not seen her children. The Maltese family court has given permission for a contact via Skype, but German authorities prefer not to react. Sabrina does not know where her youngest child has been deported to. The location is kept secret by the German authorities. In the year 2014, Maltese government had filed applications for the return of the children, without any result. The Maltese judge in charge gave the following statement. Orders given by Maltese courts and the German courts have equal standing, and that is the reason why the German authorities could not simply illegally flee with the minor children, but like every other law-abiding person or entity, they had to wait for the necessary procedures in court to be finally decided. That is in the interest not only of applicants, but also of the Maltese authorities to be given a legal justification, if any, for the acts undertaken by third parties who, without hesitation, took the law in their own hands, acted in breach of a valid court decree, and in defiance of the trust granted to them by the Maltese authorities. And if there is no such justification, then action needs to be taken against the defaulting third parties. Should no action be undertaken in this case, it could severely undermine this country's sovereignty in its own territory and could also give way to further abuse in similar cases. Regarding the case of Sabrina, I have access to most of the court documents. I also have a letter of the Jugendamt Schweinfurt addressed to the Upper Court Bamberg in which the person in charge admits the kidnapping of the children and is listing many violations of human and children's rights committed by herself and her colleagues. According to the UN Convention of Human Rights, the elements of deportation and isolation are obviously fulfilled. Maltese media paid a lot of attention to the case of Sabrina and her children. German media remained speechless. Since I have started investigating, I have found 365,000 isolated cases of child abduction within the past 10 years in Germany. Still, every single day, more than 130 children are abducted by the Jugendamt. 365,000 children match the approximate number of inhabitants of the Italian island Sardinia. Why do they tell us we are an isolated case? An isolated case is not significant, and therefore it will get no attention. My grandson was deported into a foster family where he had to starve, evidence can be provided, and he had to wear the clothes of another foster child. After I discovered where the foster family lives, the judge in charge decided to take my grandson to his father's family, who did not want to have him. Maximilian suffered from violence, and police and ambulance had to be called after the father had badly injured him. Neither the police officers in charge nor the Jugendamt filed a report to the prosecutor. In a letter of the Guardian ad litem addressed to the family court, the violence was documented in detail, together with the names of nearly all the persons in charge who were informed. The report I filed to the prosecutor was dismissed. I wrote to more than 150 members of the Bavarian parliament asking them to get involved, but I did not get any results. The Bavarian Minister of Justice is hiding behind the statement that justice in Germany is independent. I addressed an individual letter to each one of the members of parliament and ministers, so that no one is able to say he or she was not informed. Maximilian is still living in a foster home in which he was deported after the mistreatment. The persons in charge keep him quiet by forcing him to take tranquilizers, since the carers of the foster homes are not qualified to care for traumatized children. German foster homes are filled with many of these isolated cases. Every foster home receives between 3,000 and 6,000 euro per child per month, paid by the taxpayer. In his study, the former British military lawyer Peter Briody is talking about a 20 billion euro industry in the context of German family courts. Reason enough for legalized trafficking of children via care and custody in Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not only talk about an error in the system, which enables persons in charge of the so-called child welfare, judges and prosecutors, to torture children and families. We are talking about a humanitarian disaster. The result of the latter is the heavy traumatizing of hundreds of thousands of children. And if we think about the fact that every child has a mother and a father, and therefore 2 grandmothers and 2 grandfathers, the number of victims adds up to 2,190,000 so far, without even mentioning siblings and other relatives. At the moment, we have prepared a petition to the United Nations and the UN Security Council. The content of my petition has already been sent to the General Secretary of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon. Sorry. I can't put it down there. It's not included. I have also informed the ICC, the International Criminal Court in The Hague, and we have started to file reports against the members of the child trafficking industry. Let me give you an idea about the methods victims are tortured with. Andrea Jakob, a German forensic and criminological psychologist, reports about a call of a midwife to help a pregnant lady who was supposed to give birth soon. The lady was hiding from a Jugendamt collaborator in the woods while temperatures were very low, since the person in charge of the Jugendamt was visiting her almost every day, observing if the baby had been born. The pregnant lady was shivering of fear and the cold, so that the midwife was not able to examine the baby's heartbeat. By the collaborator of the Jugendamt, the midwife was threatened and forced to commit the crime of breaching her secrecy as a midwife to enable the collaborators to get hold of the baby. I would also like you to know a part of the content of an email I received by a victim. I am disabled through psychiatric treatment with risperidone and other antipsychotics. I was forced to take them by Jugendamt and by Psychosozialer Dienst, who cooperate. Jugendamt wanted to make me compulsory sterilized, and I survived forced abortion by choking the abortionist till his unconsciousness. I get no work because I have damages and harms on brain from antipsychotic. Since they gave it to me, I talk like a lunatic, I walk like a lunatic, I fall like a lunatic because it caused epilepsy. I'm diabetic from antipsychotics and I dribble like a lunatic. I get no help nor money for having been disabled or being ill. But I didn't die because I want to fight for my children and for justice. So many mothers, fathers, sons and daughters died because of Jugendamt. But we all need justice against this injustice by Jugendamt, by BRD. Please help us all. There are thousands of families being destroyed by German Jugendamt. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay your special attention, what you just have done, to the fact that this lady is not only talking about her own pain, but speaking for thousands of victims. Another victim reports that sexual abuse of and violence against her 4-year-old child by the father has been proven, but does not seem to be reason enough for any kind of action by the Jugendamt or family court. The child is still living with his father. The injuries have been officially registered by medical doctors. The mother fears her child could die. The German website Sorgerechtsmissbrauch.de lists 294 cases of suicide and murder-suicide of victims between 2004 and 2016 who have been involved in proceedings of Jugendamt and family courts. In the year 2015, we had 4 cases of suicide and murder-suicide within a period of only 6 weeks. The psychologist has examined several hundred family court files. The result is that in many of these files, pages had been taken out, facts had been perverted, submitted evidence had been ignored, and/or other crimes had been committed by judges, by experts, and by the German Jugendamt. The psychologist detected a functional network of Jugendamt, judges, lawyers, politicians, and prosecutors who legalize crimes a posteriori. If all the cases reported were based on legal abductions, authorities would not have to use methods like forcing parents into psychological opinions or psychiatric care. Refusal of children's return after mistreatment abuse could not be proven. Discrimination of non-German families, covering up child mistreatment, forcibly avoiding contact between parents and children, deprivation of the right of decision, chasing pregnant women and forcing them into abortions. In one case, the judge told a mother to voluntarily give up care and custody, otherwise she would never see her children again. Why voluntarily? Did they have no reason to take the child off her? The mother was so threatened, she agreed. The simple statement, parents will not be able to bring up their children, is highly speculative. Still, it is reason enough to abduct a child. I may as well say, you might be committing a crime tomorrow, and this is the reason why an arrest warrant against you will be issued today. Andrea Jacob assisted petitioners at the European Parliament in 2014. Thereafter, she gave an interview regarding the situation in Germany. On her way home from Brussels, she was informed that during the time she spent in Brussels, her 3 grandchildren had been abducted. At the European Parliament on May 5th, 2015, Germany has been accused of torturing children and families by the courageous psychologist. From abroad, I have received a report about a 14-year-old pregnant girl who was forced into abortion by the Jugendamt, although the mother of the girl had offered to bring up her grandchild. In case a mother or father is for whatever reason not able to bring up a child, wouldn't we think the first idea is to find out whether the grandparents could take over? The author, Andrea Hinkel, has summed up the number of relatives who are not offered the chance of bringing up a child. The result is the number of approximately 9 million relatives who are not even considered. Every single day I am receiving emails of victims from all over the world asking for help. Everyone is involved in proceedings with German Jugendamt and family courts. And there is something a lot of victims have in common. They would have needed help. To be in need is not a crime. I wish I had never asked for help after the flooding of my apartment. There are no words to describe what I felt like after my grandson was abducted. I had taken care of him while his mother was in hospital, and I could not give him back to her. A couple of weeks ago, I have received a plea for help of a lady who is also involved with Jugendamt. She is accusing German police officers to have killed the father of her daughter. Behind all these numbers and facts, there are children facing a non-existing democracy and an unindependent justice in Germany and other European countries. We must be aware that anyone could be the next victim. The one who still believes abductions are made for good reasons could tomorrow face police officers taking his children in a SWAT-style raid based on mere suspect without evidence. Let me take you to have a look at the soul of a child who is suffering from this torture. The first words my grandson said after his abduction were, "I want to get back to my Nana immediately." And only a couple of weeks ago on Easter Sunday, nearly 4 years after his deportation, when he was allowed to visit his mom and his great-grandmother, he was telling them, "I want to come home." Children might be allowed to see their parents once a month under observation of the authorities. In many cases, victims report the meetings were video recorded by the persons in charge, whereas family court sittings in Germany are held behind closed doors without witnesses. While siblings are separated and deported to different foster homes, the parents have in many cases to drive hundreds of kilometers to see their children for 1 or 2 hours. What the children, not only in Germany, are suffering from is the so-called parental alienation syndrome. Children are too small, too innocent to understand what is happening to them, and they will believe what happened is their fault. What have I done wrong will be the question of their lives, or until the truth will come to light. What a life to be lived with a feeling of guiltiness which is not theirs. Still not enough. The so-called carers or foster parents, all the persons who are making their living with the pain of these children and their families, do not want to live with the pain, the nightmares, the fears, the tears, and therefore unusual behavior, depression, aggression or autoaggression of traumatized children. But they found an easy way out. They are tranquilizing the children to keep them quiet, or lock them into cages, which they call care beds. These cases were revealed only a couple of weeks ago by investigative journalists of the Bayerischer Rundfunk, a Bavarian radio and TV sender. In the foster homes for disabled children, these so-called care beds are used for locking children away for what they call, you might not believe this, time out for relaxation. In one case, a child was locked up 16 times a day and the whole night. If parents have to give their, for example, autistic child into so-called professional care, they are forced to sign they agree in the carer's locking away the child. If a foster home would be better than their family's care and nurture, why do the children want to go home? And why are children not returned to their families after it has been proven there was no mistreatment? We've had this once in Germany. Deportation, isolation, and forced medication, and the doctor in charge was called Dr. Mengele. We had 300,000 children abducted during the era of Adolf Hitler. 300,000. During the era of Dr. Merkel, we are facing a number of more than 365,000 children. A report of the Daily Mail tells how children of non-German nationality had been deemed racially suitable. What followed were years of hell, from which they would never psychologically recover. At the orphanage, they were forced to speak only German. And if they spoke, for example, Polish, they were starved. How come that we have the same phenomenon nowadays? Victims with different nationalities than German are threatened to never see their families again if they dare to speak in their native tongue. This is the truth about Germany and other European countries, in which countries nothing seems to be impossible considering the cruelty authorities are treating children and families with. I have a list of cases describing the methods persons in charge of Jugendamt are using to get hold of children. They are simply unbelievable. And this is what makes it so difficult to convince the public of what is taking place. I would like to show you a video now about a child abduction. I would need some help, maybe, please. This is, it might not be good for everyone to watch it. If somebody wants to leave while we show the video, because it's, yeah, very, very cruel, very violent. Thanks, Sissi. Before you started, back to 10 times. Okay, great. A mother asked for help at the Jugendamt because her son was bullied at school by teachers and, yes, of course. Her son was bullied at school by teachers and pupils, and she asked the Jugendamt for help. The Jugendamt and the family court decided to abduct the child. A court carer came to the house of the family, and a family member made a film of the abduction. So it's sometimes difficult to understand what they are saying, but at minute 10:25 the video shows something what could be a violent act by the police officer. I just want you to watch it. They have handcuffed the boy because he did not want to leave his family. Okay, thank you. This child is suffering from asthma, by the way.
Die Adresse im Internet, wo kann man den finden?
Bei mir hinterher. I've got the link.
Wie alt ist der Junge, was gerade war?
Bitte?
Wie alt ist der Junge?
12. 12 und hat Asthma. Es war kein Rettungsdienst vor Ort, keine medizinische Hilfe. Er hätte einen Asthmaanfall bekommen können. I don't want to say this in English though. There was no ambulance car, no medical aid, nothing. The boy is suffering from asthma. He could have, in the end, he could have died if he had had an asthma attack, and there would have been no help. So this video is it is still on YouTube. I can give you the link later on. But authorities seem to have blurred the eyes of the police officers and the court carers, so you cannot recognize him. When the video was put on YouTube, I immediately saved it on my laptop. That's why I have the original version.
Which town in Germany?
I think it was Kaiserslautern, but let me look it up, not make a mistake. It's not moving. It's not going down. Sorry.
This is from the video.
Okay, yeah, this was a picture taken when they took the boy outside, bare feet. Yeah. Vielen Dank. Sorry. The case of Gelsenkirchen, where the head of the Jugendamt had founded a company trafficking foster children to Hungary, proves that the fears of the victims are based on solid grounds. German authorities are trafficking children. The fear of the victims even stops them to accept help. I have copied a conversation of victims giving the statements that they are too scared to place their names on the list, which will be handed over to the United Nations. During all the suffering we are experiencing, I want to point out that I have always been aware of the fact that in Germany every second day a child dies due to mistreatment and due to missing qualification of the Jugendamt employees, due to a child protection system which has collapsed years ago. Professor Dr. Zokos, the head of the Institute of Forensic Medicine at the Charité in Berlin, and Dr. Saskia Gudat are talking about 200,000 children mistreated yearly in Germany. They published a book reporting about these cases. I wonder why there is no English version available. Maybe because of one of its horrifying stories telling about a child scalped by a family member of his African family. Being asked by the professor why she did not react on the situation, the German social worker replied, "Because this is African tradition." How come that exactly the same persons in charge of Jugendamt who have proven to be unable to protect children are accusing families of being unable to bring up children? German social workers have been criticized for missing qualification for good reasons. The education of social workers does not include any kind of medical knowledge. For estimating whether a child is in danger, you need at least a basic knowledge of forensic medicine. In Germany, social workers, prosecutors, judges, family helpers, or police officers do not have this kind of knowledge. But instead of installing improvements in the system, the situation has taken a vicious turn. Social workers are not only abducting children without court decrees on mere suspect, without evidence, but they are also covering up mistreatment and crimes to protect the reputation of the Jugendamt as a guardian of the child. And if there is a court decree, the signature of the judge is missing, whatever reason for. But abductions on mere suspect without evidence cannot be the solution to the criticism given to the persons in charge of the Jugendamt. All I am asking for is the immediate investigation in all cases by independent, non-German experts. And the immediate return of the children in all cases of illegal abduction. The immediate return of the children where it has been proven that there was no mistreatment. I am asking for compensation for the damage in form of a lifetime pension and rehabilitation. I am asking for the immediate suspending of every person in charge of illegal abductions combined with the freezing of the income. The Jugendamt refugees who are forced to live in exile had to leave back all their belongings. Many of them are living under difficult circumstances, and many of them have been ill before they had to leave their home country. Medicine is expensive even for children. Help is needed. We would therefore be grateful for your help, which will be coordinated by the Maltese Order in Gozo. We will have to be prepared in assisting the families for the return of the children. At the moment, we are getting ready to establish a project for assisting victims of illegal abductions. When children return to their families, help will be needed on their way back to a maybe not normal, but a better life. We do not know what exactly has been said and done to the children in foster homes or foster families. But reports like the one of the Bavarian foster home make us fear that the damage done to our children and grandchildren has a dimension we cannot even imagine. Further information on the project will be given in the near future. I herewith ask all the victims of German Jugendamt to get registered for the list of cases we will hand over to the United Nations and the International Criminal Court. One way could be to put their names down on my petition. The pain we suffer from is no isolated pain. My pain is one amongst millions. But still I am grateful for every new day I am given to fight against the violation of children's rights. I am grateful to have met many people who are fighting the same battle. Thank you, Sissi Kammerlander, Andrea Jakob, Professor Dr. Ursula Gresser, Heidi Rosemantai, Sabine Merz, Johannes Schumacher, and many, many more. I am grateful that the victims of the German and other European children trafficking industry have been courageous enough to break the silence and bring their stories into light. Investigations must be started to find out whether the accused intentionally and systematically maintain damage to the health of children and families, and therefore deliberately cause the unnecessary suffering and injuring of thousands of people by, just to list a few, crime of murder, severe deprivation of physical liberty, other inhuman acts, deportation or forcible transfer of population, imprisonment or other severe deprivation of physical liberty, other inhuman acts of a similar nature intentionally causing great suffering, or serious injury to the body or to mental or physical health, killing, torture, inhuman treatment causing great suffering, denying a fair trial, illegal deportation and transfer, excessive incidental injury or damage, depriving the nationals of hostile power of rights, cruel treatment. Ladies and gentlemen, the knowledge of history is not enough. It shall be used and transposed. To maintain human rights is a duty which needs to be fulfilled daily. The UN Declaration of Human Rights is part of the German Constitution for good reasons. Thank you, General Secretary of the United Nations, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, for replying to our reports. Thank you, ICC, International Criminal Court, for all the helpful information. The following is addressed to Malta and Gozo. Grazie, tali occom tatendu aldin il conferenza fi Vienna. Ien nav li de decisioni tana, li na harbule in Malta isna refugiati ochra, seteti causat problemi sociali paiscom. Atma kont nach sep ilies soluzioni kellat kun li nachrab. Malta tatni es sacha u l'opportunità li nicielet contra es sistema crudila u disumana fil Germania u fil pai isi cirien. Grazie lil Malta u audesh li ilaituna entuna u salvaituna. Grazie tal imhaba u il generosita tacom, tal habiberia sabiha, li ercivena tat democracia, li teshu u tax humana tal cura u il ken li ercivena. Grazie. Allah ibirek il Malta u lil audesh. Thank you, my friends from Malta and Gozo, Scotland, England, Wales, Ireland, France, USA, Hungary, Austria, Germany, for your friendship and your help, for giving me the feeling I am not walking alone. Thank you, Charlie. And last not least, a very, very special thank you to Trish and John MacDonald of the Flower of Scotland in Marsanfon, Gozo, who listened to my unbelievable story and gave me the chance to follow the invitation to Vienna. And once again in this life, I am asking for help and protection. And my plea is addressed to the United Nations, not only for the children in Germany, but also for the children in Austria, Switzerland, Norway, and the UK, from which countries we have reports of similar proceedings. Ladies and gentlemen, one final sentence. Do you remember the story of E.T.? It was all about how to get this little alien where it belongs to, back home. Remember him saying, E.T., home, phone? By the way, foster children are not allowed to phone home. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Vielen Dank, Beate Kelly, für die sehr berührende Rede. Wir werden die nie vergessen. Möchte jemand Fragen stellen an Beate Kelly? Wenn keine Fragen mehr sind, dann werden wir jetzt eine... okay. Bitte.
Ich möchte Sie fragen, glauben Sie an Zufälle? Glauben Sie nicht? Es ist mit... Ich habe Frau Beate Kelly gefragt, ob sie an Zufälle glaubt. Es ist mit Sicherheit kein Zufall, dass dieses beeindruckende Schicksal gerade Ihnen passiert ist, weil Sie stark sind, das nach außen zu vertreten. Sie sprechen nicht nur für sich und Ihr Enkelkind, sondern auch für die alle anderen Betroffenen.
Ich habe jetzt keine Frage in dem Sinn, sondern eine Anmerkung dazu. Meine Ex-Frau gibt selber an, dass sie im Jugendamt die Sozialarbeiterinnen ausbildet. Meine Ex-Frau war auch die Fernsehsupernanny in Österreich im ATV. In einer der Sendungen wurde einem Kind der Mund verklebt, dass man weiß, seit dem Fall Omofuma, oder wie er geheißen hat, dass das als Folter gewertet wird. Rein der Quote wegen, es wurde nicht eingegriffen, es ist alles bestens. Sie ist die Expertin für Kinder. Mir hat man meine Kinder genommen, mir hat man sie entfremdet, weil sie ja politisch verbunden ist. Es geht in Österreich leider genauso zu und es geht darum, um eine Quote, es geht darum, wie man sonst irgendwie die Kinder benutzt, aber nicht ums Kinderwohl. Und danke für Ihren Kampf.
Gibt es noch Fragen an Beate Kelly? Bitte das Mikrofon weiterreichen. Wenn es keine Fragen mehr gibt, machen wir jetzt eine 5 Minuten Pause. Ich glaube, die brauchen wir jetzt auch.